Other
Oh
than
yeah,
that,
the
other than that,
Yooka-Laylee, NES Classic, Zelda, and I guess Persona.
yeah, and then other than that, we can just shoot shit until we're done.
Alright, I love shooting out things.
I love shooting things out with that hoe.
Ha 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 ha! Ha ha! Oh.
That's like one of my favorite voices. Rachel hates it though.
What, just the...
It's like a semi-Cleveland, that's what she calls it. It's like fucking Cleveland brand over here.
Yeah. It's like a mixture of Cleveland and Kermit.
Yeah. Cleveland, they're proud here.
Or it's like Barney from The Simpsons.
Yeah. Hi, homie.
Hi, Homer.
That's perfect. Alright, let's go ahead and get this shit started before we just sit here and just fucking... Just
oh,
like,
well,
shoot
hello,
voices at
internet
each other.
people.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the very first JerBer Podcast. I am here with one of my very good friends and one of my, well, I don't really know how I would describe you other than one of my very close friends and an extremely talented individual. Nick, why don't you introduce yourself?
Well, I'm completely indescribable. I am amazing, wonderful, and JerBer just can't get enough of me. Hi, I'm Nick from GameAway. If you haven't heard of what GameAway is, we are a channel of sorts. Not to toot my own horn or anything, but
we
I
are
think
a channel.
we are.
I think that speaks enough volumes.
We are the most popular, unpopular channel ever.
I feel like this is a good way to put it. I think when we first started talking, that was one of the things I told you. I was paying attention to your quality and was just baffled by how nice everything was. You were just completely dumbfounded that I felt that way. You're like, I was like, dude, you sound amazing. Why are you not more popular? And you're like, amazing how? You had like a Joe Pesci thing about it. Funny how? Am I a clown? Do I amuse you?
Do you think I'm funny?
So what I wanted to talk to Nick about, and this is going to be a recurring thing. I'm going to have people on here to talk about just random shit, just shooting shit. Nick's already heard me say that phrase like 3 or 4 times, so I'm going to stop saying it.
I love shooting things.
I'm going to shoot all kinds of shit. The walls are going to be plastered with feces by the time I'm done.
Hopefully you ate something a little better smelling.
I don't know, maybe potpourri. So, one of Nick's, well, I guess something that Nick and I have in common is that we're very, very big fans of Nintendo. Nick, you can agree with that?
100%. I mean, we've been playing games since we were very little, and we just get a boner every time we hear the word Nintendo.
I go gay for Nintendo. Let me rephrase that. I did go gay for Nintendo. I have recently been converted, like a fucking Pornhub video of some kid thought I was gay.
Whoa!
And then
kid? Hold on. That's breaking some boundaries.
Kid of legal age who got converted by, I don't know, like a MILF or a hot chick or something.
Dude, you're a Nintendian now. Like, you're no longer just JerBer. You are a Nintendian.
Well, I was, but we'll talk about that here in a second. We're going to talk about some of the things that Nintendo, maybe a few of the other companies associated with them, and maybe even a few other companies have done as of late. As you guys know, I'm a very big person when it comes to gaming and stuff. In fact, I'm going to college just so I can learn how to make video games, or at least be part of the pipeline. And then where Nick comes into this is he's a massive he pays attention to a lot of Nintendo shit that's really important. And he's extremely insightful, which is why, number one, I wanted him on this particular topic. And also as to why I wanted him to be one of the first people on the podcast. So again, Nick, thank you so much.
Sure, anytime, baby.
So one of the first things we're going to talk about, because I feel like, well, this will probably lead it in better. I've been a gigantic fan of Banjo-Kazooie. I'm definitely not the biggest fan of it compared to the rest of the internet, but I deeply, deeply enjoyed the first two games. So as you guys know, Yooka-Laylee, which is made by Playtonic Games, is the spiritual successor to Banjo-Kazooie. For those of you who don't know about Yooka-Laylee, it's basically a game that was crowdfunded and very widely successful in the crowdfunding, and has just been released this past month. It has been met with very interesting reviews, either saying that it's a perfect revival to platformers, as well as being, on the other side, more of a remaster than a remake, or let alone its own title. Nick, I wanted to have your thoughts about it, because I don't think I've heard you talk about Yooka-Laylee in a wider sense, specifically.
Like, what do you mean?
What did you think about the game? Did you have any criticisms with it? Did you have any specific praises that you felt it outdid Banjo-Kazooie in as a whole?
It's really hard to say without having the nostalgia glasses off, especially since the rareware titles of yesteryear are my favorite titles to play, and Banjo-Kazooie and Tooie and, you know, Donkey Kong 64 are just so amazing. And whenever people are like, how do you compare this to, you know, those games? And it's easy, but it's hard to say which one's better. It's a really tough question, and I think it comes down to, like, how it was made, and I'll get to that in a moment. Like, Yooka-Laylee is designed as a spiritual successor to Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie. I'd liken it more to Banjo-Tooie with its flaws and exceptional qualities. It comes with both of those, and there are a lot of problems that I had with Banjo-Tooie that follow through to Yooka-Laylee. But that would be like an hour-long conversation, so I think it would be better if you would, like, probably ask questions.
Yeah, of course. Regarding the flaws, I'm pretty sure because this is one of the things I noticed that was addressed a lot. The layout of some of the places, so I suppose one of your flaws was the conveyance, that everything didn't really mesh well. It's very difficult to get from one place to another, things of that sort.
I wouldn't say things are difficult to navigate. I would say the continuity of the levels is something left to be desired. Like, in Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, you had, you know, these levels. Like, for example, Gruntilda's Tower in Banjo-Kazooie. Each level had a significance in the tower, at least a little bit. And when you're exploring the tower, when you reach a certain point to access that level, it was themed to that level, and so everything kind of made sense. That, okay, yeah, this level opens up this level, and so I can, you know, access it easily. But in Yooka-Laylee, you're going up Ivory Towers, which is essentially the Gruntilda Towers of this game, and really, it doesn't make sense. It's just kind of like thrown together, and that's one of my biggest criticisms about Yooka-Laylee, is how just the continuity of how the levels fit together. And you got enemies that are in every single level, and they're themed to those levels. But then you have NPCs that don't match it at all. Like in the first level, in like a Mayan temple-looking area, like in Tooie, you have like a bundle of bones that's in a pot, and he's being cooked. And it's like, well, why? Why is that there?
Basically like a bat in a snow level.
Yeah. Or I don't know. It's kind of hard to describe because it's kind of frustrating, but at the same time you're just like, you kind of roll with it because like, okay, maybe there's some sort of like bigger significance that I'm not seeing. But there are like, in some levels, Trouser, which is the trouser snake that's similar to Bottles in form, that teaches you all the moves and such. He's just kind of tucked in the corners in different levels, and you're just like, why? Like, why are you here? Why are you in this specific corner? It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I think that had a lot to do, because in Banjo-Kazooie, I think Bottles was pretty much placed wherever, game design wise, wherever you would almost immediately use whatever skill you were about to learn. For example, with the monkey in the tree, I believe his name was Conga, that was where you learned how to shoot eggs in the original Banjo-Kazooie, and that was perfect placing. I can't really think of any specific moments in Banjo-Tooie where that may or may not have been the case.
You pretty much had all of your moves. The only, like at the beginning of the game, he just gave you all your moves back. Yeah. Or at least I think that's how it went. Otherwise, you just started the game with all of those previous moves. The only time you
had all the Banjo-Kazooie moves, but then you also learned, like any brand new moves,
right?
Like the different types of eggs,
in that
the separation ability.
That ties into how I think Banjo-Tooie likens itself to Yooka-Laylee in its flaws and its design. I mean, the worlds are humongous in both games. Both feel kind of empty in areas, and the continuity just doesn't make sense in some of those levels. If anything, it would just be completely comparable only to Banjo-Tooie. Because Kazooie was more linear in its design and form, and Tooie is like the opposite.
Yeah, it's very, very open, to the point to where you almost get zero direction in certain aspects. I remember there was at least a good month when I was very, very young playing this game, where I just had no idea where I was going, what I was doing. I just happened to stumble upon this thing. It's like, okay, well now I can go to the next level. Great, cool. As opposed to Banjo-Kazooie, where I can just mindlessly, as an adult, just go through it. I don't know if it's because I've remembered everything to the T, or it's just made that way, but it could be both.
Yeah, and a few other things, like, I heard complaints about the camera, and I've experienced some camera issues myself, but most of them were pretty minor, like nothing game-breaking. And a new patch that I have up here, they're going to be releasing a patch here in a few weeks. It's going to fix quite a bit of issues, including frame rate issues, camera stuff, just more polishing around, including the ability to skip cutscenes and dialogue to hush those gibberish voices that a lot of people seem to hate so much, which I just don't understand why. I love the gibberish voices. It just adds to the charm of Yooka-Laylee.
I don't really understand the complaint with that either. Why would you want... Well, I guess I could say, why would you want to play a game in the style of Banjo-Kazooie if you don't appreciate that? But then, of course, there are kids playing this who have never even touched Banjo-Kazooie before, so I guess I can't make that claim altogether. But it's more of a stylistic choice, you know. Why the hell would you take away this from a certain game or that from a certain game? You know, it's just part of what makes it. It's part of its identity.
Yeah, it's the identity of the game. So, I mean, if you want it gone, that's totally your choice. And that's why I guess they're including the option. So, I mean, good on Playtonic Games.
It's very considerate. I probably would not be as generous about that. Be like, well, hey, just turn the fucking music down. There's music. There's Spotify on PlayStation 4 for a reason. But that's personally me. The
music is absolutely wonderful in Yooka-Laylee. Steve Burke, Grant Kirkhope, and David Wise did the soundtrack for them. And
I'm not familiar with any of those other than Grant Kirkhope, but that's probably just the internet dickhead in me.
Well, Grant Kirkhope did the soundtrack for Donkey Kong 64, obviously Yooka-Laylee, Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie, GoldenEye, and various other Rare games. and he does a lot of new work now. And David Wise did the Donkey Kong Country trilogy, and the Returns series as well. Oh well, he did Tropical Freeze. He didn't do Returns. And Steve Burke did Viva Pinata, I believe. And Ghost of the Ghoulies, I think. No, Grant Kirkhope did Ghost of the Ghoulies. I'm forgetting some of the stuff he did. He wasn't as prominent as David Wise and Grant Kirkhope was, but he contributed to the game, and you know it's always worth a shout out for that.
Yeah. I think it's safe to say that for who the game was marketed to, which is basically me and you, the people who grew up in the 90s, and appreciated the essentially the father of this game, I feel like it's done what I've seen, what I've heard. I feel like it's done what it was supposed to, which can be very credible because, you know, like with Mighty Number 9, that game was just all around garbage. It was fucking awful. And I don't understand why, because it's essentially the same fucking team. And not only that, but they had, I don't know if you've ever heard the Gunvolt series.
Yeah.
But I played a lot of that, and it plays essentially like you would expect a Mega Man game to. Of course, with its own quirks to make the game significant in its own right, and not just be like, oh, hey, this is Mega Man.
It's funny how the Gunvolt series plays better as a Mega Man game than Mighty Number 9, which was supposed to be designed for that purpose. And Gunvolt had like a much smaller budget.
Yeah.
I just think it's absolutely crazy. I don't know who to blame it on. I don't know. Mighty Number 9 was just such a I don't know how to say it. Is garbage. Like
I think I know. I can't put the blame on them entirely, but I think it transitions really nice into the next part of the Yooka-Laylee thing. I think it had a lot to do with a lot of the basically the ears or the mouths in their ears telling them things that could otherwise get them in trouble. And I say that with air quotes. And to be more specific, a lot of these people, normally SJWs and shit like that, but just the people who get offended or are professionally offended by these sort of things. And of course, I'm not sure how prominent this is in Japanese culture, but they may be less susceptible to it than we are.
So
100%. They may take accusations to that more to heart than we do. Whereas we're like, oh, shut the fuck up. You know, they're like, well, our game won't get sold if we don't listen to these people because these are the people who are buying it. Even though these aren't the people buying it, these are just people who want their voices heard for whatever reason, regardless of whether they actually have a say in the matter or not. Which is why, for example, there was a big controversy over the gender of the characters, if that really matters, because, you know, I can't say for the entirety of video game history because it's not the case, but at least since the NES era, there have been prominent roles, both male and female, for video game characters. Of course, immediate thoughts towards that, Zelda and Samus. Probably even more. That's just what I can think of off the top of my head. And of course, there have been damsels in video games before, but I don't think that's so much like a statement against women. I don't think that's ever really been a statement against women. I think that's just more of a very classic dynamic. You know, the beautiful princess is kidnapped by the monster, and there's a hero clad in red and blue going to go save her. I mean, that's just a classic thing. That's like saying that, I don't know, that's like saying the Bible's cliche. No, that's just where a lot of the shit came from.
I mean, you're not wrong in a sense. About the Mighty Number 9, the SJW culture, Japan doesn't really care at all. It's the American branches of said companies that are like, whoa, hey, you might want to do something about that because it won't sell here if that's the case. Though that is definitely not the case at all. People will... There's a thing called a vocal minority, which is a lot louder than the majority of the fan base or the consumers. They will complain. I can deeply
agree with that.
They can complain just because they can. And people who are like, oh, well, I'm not going to buy this now because this has this in it and I don't want it. They're probably still going to buy it. Let's just be quite honest here.
Yeah.
Like, I say...
Which brings... Go ahead.
I was just going to end it with, you know, I say I hate Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, or just the Mario Kart 8 in general, for a lot of reasons. None of them to the effect of, you know, the design and stuff like that. But I'm probably still going to buy it anyway, because my Switch is aching for a new game, and... But that completely besides the point.
I think if I were to get a Switch, I would definitely get the Mario Kart 8 version because of all the DLC that comes with it. Not only that, but because I also just love fucking Mario Kart. I'd love to hear why you would otherwise not buy it.
I love Mario Kart. Like, Mario Kart 64, Double Dash, and DS are my favorites. 8 has a lot of design choices and just questionable things that I'm like, this doesn't... Why? Why did this happen? Like, this isn't really a valid argument for me, but why is 2 F-Zero courses, a Mii suit for Captain Falcon, and his F-Zero kart in the game, but not Captain Falcon?
That's a very good question. That is a very good question.
I mean, it's a dumb argument on my part, which I'm not saying like this is true. I mean, it is true, but it's not like something that should, you know, deter me from buying the game. And it's not. It's just like an observation I made. I have really, I think, somewhat valid reasons in the gameplay mechanics on why I hate Mario Kart 8. But it's a question that I ask every time people are like, "Oh yeah, F-Zero courses, let's race on them." And I always bring it up, and they're like, "Well, oh."
I find that very justifiable. That's not the first time that Nintendo has done that at all. Another example of that I can immediately think of is Super Smash Bros. 3DS and Wii U. There are so many different costumes of these characters where I sit there and I think, and you couldn't include these people, why? You know, you clearly got rights to them, like, say, for example, Geno, they had to go through Square to get full rights for. Lloyd, they had to get, who the fuck? That's Bando Namkai, isn't it?
Yeah. I think
Bando
so.
Namkai.
Bandai Namco, yeah.
Yeah, so they've already had to get rights for these people, and they've already gotten them, so why not just go ahead and add them to the game? It just doesn't make much sense to me. Like, why make costumes?
Well,
it's make the fucking characters and sell them for much more.
It's a cheaper choice, and it's probably, you know, the time table that they have to develop, you know, DLC and costumes and such like that. It's just more costly to make a 3D model, animations, promotional work, and stuff like that. There's a lot that goes into a character in a fighting game, more than just kind of like slapping them in there and calling it done. Like, for example, like clones, like Lucina's in the game, and they almost didn't include her. They were just going to include her as like a costume, but Sakurai found that, you know, if they just made her very similar to Marth, she could be included, and that's exactly what they did. So I think it's more of like than just a simple, let's include her. Let's not. I think it's more so than that. It's more complicated.
Yeah. I suppose that makes sense, but it still frustrates me to an extent because...
Oh, I agree.
You know, I guess I would have been pacified, you know, because there's a bunch of people. Oh, include Geno, I love Geno. Oh, include Lloyd, I love Lloyd. Oh, include Mega Man X, I love Mega Man X. But I probably would have been pacified too if they put a Sora outfit in the fucking game.
Oh.
I'll be honest. I probably would have been pacified if they did that.
I want Sora more than Cloud, though I can understand why they put Cloud in, because when you talk Final Fantasy, a lot of people go straight to Final Fantasy VII, therefore Cloud, and it just makes more sense.
they probably could have also done that for promotional reasons regarding the remake. But see, the thing with that is that Sora has been on more titles on the Nintendo console and handheld. Well, I don't think he's been on any consoles, but handheld at the very least. Multiple times more than Cloud. Cloud has only been in 2 games, Recoded and Chain of Memories, and he wasn't even a playable character. It's whatever, because, like you said, I fucking love Cloud. Sora just made more sense to me, but probably the fact that he was so closely tied to Disney was the major reason. Because if Square actually had full rights on him, that probably would have been it. I think it's because, like, like, we don't mind, but Disney, yeah, they're kind of...
Yeah, see, when you one party versus 2 or 3 or 4 different parties just to get one character, you're probably going to go with that one that's easier.
I gotta be perfectly honest, I feel like had Disney given permission, he probably would have replaced Bayonetta. Like, I know Bayonetta was a very, very, very big choice, but if I remember correctly, Sora was higher than her.
I actually voted
on a lot of the polls.
When the ballot came out. Did I say ballot? The Smash ballot came out.
Perfectly fine. I knew what you meant.
The number one vote, I think, they omitted a lot of results, I think, just so they could say, oh yeah, Bayonetta was number 1. I honestly think
they were pushing a lot of that third-party shit. They were pushing it really hard this time, which is fine. But then it almost kind of like loses, like when there's too many, which I think Sakurai also like made that point when he was talking about them in general. But like when you have so many, it kind of loses the spirit of what it is, which is basically a Nintendo game. And then you introduce a few, and it's like, oh, cool, because these characters have history.
Yeah.
And then once you get closer to like the end of the roster, it's like, wait a minute. It's like, I see why some of these characters are here, but...
I mean, I voted for Shantae. Shantae has had a long history on Nintendo platforms, with the Game Boy iterations and, the 3DS and Wii U iterations as well. Shantae has been there for a long time.
I found that pretty shocking because I had only heard of her once Pirate Curse came out. Then I did a little bit of research on her and found out she's been in games on the Game Boy for years and years and years.
Yeah. So when they were like, vote for your favorite character, I was like, okay, so let's try like an indie character, maybe a third-party character. And the only one that made sense with me that had, Nintendo history was Shantae. I mean, a lot of people were like,
Shovel Knight,
yeah, a lot of people wanted Shovel Knight.
All over the place.
Yeah, I mean, and Shovel Knight has no history. He's a new indie character. So it wouldn't make sense. That would just be like, just because the hype train said so.
Yeah.
And Sakurai,
he was real. I mean, he's still kind of popular, but he was really popular back when Smash Brothers was being, or the fourth Smash Brothers was being conceptualized. Jumping like back 10 minutes ago, though, because we started on a good trek. But then we like went far astray. Once we started talking about Smash Brothers, I was kind of like, "Buck, I know this is going to be like a 10-minute long conversation. Just this right here." Jumping back. By the way, guys, we fucking love Smash Brothers. Maybe eventually one day, me and Nick will fucking record ourselves playing it because we have a lot of fun when we play it.
You ready to
jumping
get
back to
wrecked?
the Yooka-Laylee thing. Oh please! As long as Damien's not there to fuck with me.
Let's do it right now.
Right now, maybe later.
Right.
I gotta charge my fucking DS. I was thinking about. I was like, in the event that Nick and I decide to play, I should probably charge it, but then I never did.
Oh,
but
mine's
I'm probably
dead.
going to here in a little bit. But jumping back to the Yooka-Laylee thing, there was something not pertaining to the game, but more sort of development that I wanted to talk to you about, and that was JonTron. His includement and furthermore excludement from the game.
I don't care either way. I know a lot of people, again, I think it's the vocal minority here that were like saying they're not going to buy the game because JonTron got excluded from the game. And I'm on Platonic's side for this one. Like, I haven't read into really what JonTron said, nor do I really care per se. I mean, I'm interested because how much of an uproar it made, but I don't want to watch I think it was like 8 hours, an 8-hour podcast, which was crazy. I don't want to watch 8 hours just to figure out what he said. If I wouldn't mind someone sending me like a summary of a video summary of him actually, you know, saying this stuff. But for Platonic Games, it's purely a business decision. If there's going to be negative controversy regarding their title and their company as a whole, they're going to want to cut ties with that. Because no company wants bad press. Unless they're really wanting bad press, then by all means go for it. Any press is press. But that's another argument I've heard about that. It's any press is press. But personally, I wouldn't want any bad press in my company if I had one. And if what I'm hearing is true about what JonTron said, that, you know, he said some pretty messed up stuff and had some pretty twisted ideals, then at that point, yeah, as a company, I would probably, you know, want to get rid of him. Though I think Platonic could have done it in a more silent manner, and it would have been just like a little bit better. I don't know how else to put it, because like they announced like, yeah, we're removing JonTron, and that's what caused like the uproar. Everybody hated that. But if they would have just like at launch said, yeah, hey guys, by the way, JonTron's gone, it would have. I think it would have went a lot better.
Yeah. I'll get to that part here in a second. Basically, my interpretation of everything, because I watched part of the podcast, it's actually only really about 2-ish hours, or at least that part of it is. Basically, they were having a debate. Okay, so Destiny, for those of you who don't know, is a video game streamer. I believe the majority of what he plays is... I probably shouldn't talk about that because I don't immediately know. I'd have to look, and then that would just take too long for something that's not relatively important. But anyways, he has taken up this this position on his platform to debate a lot of the alt-right, significant alt-right channels, specifically like Sargon of Akkad. Again, I'm not going to talk about anybody else because I'm not 100% positive, but I know on multiple accounts he has talked to Sargon of Akkad. Anyways, he got into a debate with JonTron, who has been a little bit more vocal on his position as of late. So basically, sorry if my talking is a little bit cut up, because basically what I'm doing right now is I'm looking for quotes and stuff just to kind of like get you up to speed. Basically, they had this debate. JonTron said some things that, for the most part, were justifiable to an extent. Keyword to an extent. But were very racy. And then there were some things they said were just fucking stupid. But he said later on that, you know, he not good at debates. That he didn't come in prepared. He was just expecting a discussion and not so much a debate.
I mean, yeah, I can level them on that, because if you're coming in expecting like a casual podcast and then all of a sudden you're in the hot seat, like that'll throw anyone off.
Because Destiny is the type, and I don't know if I feel like we do know somebody like this, but I'm not 100% on that, because if we have talked to anybody like this, it's been a while. But Destiny is a type of debater where he likes to talk really, really fast and really, really loud, and basically frustrate you and like fluster you to the point to where you just say some shit.
Yeah.
So basically, John says these things. A few days later, Platonic makes a statement on, I believe, Twitter or to a video game. God damn it. it may have been like Polygon or Kotaku, basically saying that they were removing JonTron from the game. Here's the thing, and I've also seen other people say this exact thing. My feelings on this are, had they never said that they were removing him from the game or included themselves in this, because they did include themselves in this particular topic, I would have never known. And I found it kind of frustrating that they included themselves by removing him on something that really had little to do with them. And there was I can't remember the name of the website, but it's like NeoGAF or something like that. Hang on, let me look.
Yeah, NeoGAF is like a gaming forum where leaks and stuff are usually posted.
Basically, NeoGAF had complained, and it's just, like, again, like Nick said, the vocal minority, and this is a very, very small minority, mind you, complaining to Playtonic about this. So Playtonic makes the decision to cut JonTron's voice from the game, and he voiced a particular character. I believe it's the, for those of you who played or, care which character it is, there's a Porta Potty character that he was supposed to voice. You can look it up on YouTube to find the specific. In fact, I'll link it below just for those curious.
Yeah, he's
but they cut him from the game. People were really, really upset about this, and I was kind of upset about this. At this point, I was kind of upset about this because I was like, well, fuck, I really, like, he's been a really big advocate for these people and the Banjo-Kazooie series, and essentially therefore Yooka-Laylee. And I also felt like they really had no place in this, so I didn't know why they were including themselves. It's kind of like saying, like, if somebody gets into a racial controversy and then be like, oh, well, we have no place in this, but we don't mind voicing our opinion. That's usually how you get yourself in more trouble than anything. But then, because there were some people, this is where I lose any, like, compliancy with them. There were people who wanted to get refunds because they were, I don't know if it was necessarily because they were buying the game because of JonTron, which I highly doubt. And I'm sure you agree with me that that's a bullshit reason to not buy a game. You said it yourself. However, when they asked for refunds because they weren't getting what they wanted, a lot of these people described that they were getting banned from not purchasing the game, but they were asking for refunds. Hang on, let me look this shit up.
Were they asking for refunds on Twitter and then they were getting banned from, or getting blocked? No,
it wasn't Twitter. It was Steam. It was Steam. Okay. Yooka-Laylee devs ban and censor gamers after removing JonTron. Playtonic banning people from their Steam forums for asking for refunds. Probably shouldn't be reading Reddit for this.
Maybe I should have read into that more, because I read the title that they were banning them, but I didn't read into it, because I thought it was just kind of ridiculous. So it's like, oh, whatever, it'll just blow over. But then it got worse.
Yeah, it got much worse because of stuff like this. Like, see, for me, I was like, well, fuck. Like, now it just kind of makes me hesitant to buy the game. But after this, I was like, I'm not buying this shit because I don't support companies that act like this. I feel like if you're a company, you should be capable of taking, especially, like, seasoned professionals like this. Like, this is not their first fucking game. This may be their first game as this company, but this is not their first game.
Well, I don't think Playtonic as a whole is the one moderating their forums, because a lot of company outsource that.
Yeah, that is very true. But I did also see some Twitter posts from some of the people who are, hang on, in the middle of, like, finding these specific tweets. But they were from people within the company mocking the fans who were bitching about it, as well as the people asking for refunds.
That's interesting. I want to hear that. But I don't know. I like the game. I love Yooka-Laylee, actually. I have some problems with it, but those problems can be fixed in patches. Some problems can't, like the continuity of levels and whatnot. But hey, I mean, no video game isn't flawed. But this whole controversy, I mean, I as I said in another podcast, like if they would have just kind of stayed out of it, no one really would have really known.
That's me personally.
But as I said earlier, if you're a company and there's any sort of negativity surrounding you and your game potentially, you're probably gonna want to cut that. And that was probably their business mindset for that. It didn't pan out well, but it happened nonetheless, and obviously that won't change.
Yeah, I can understand that, but the thing is, like you said earlier, vocal majority, I don't think it's really that big of a deal to make a giant mess out of it, especially when the game is so close to being completed in production. Mm-hmm. And I believe this happened like within like 2 weeks of the game being released. And I feel like this is just like, look, we don't at the very most, I feel like they should have said, we don't support what he said. We in no way condone what he said. We in no way endorse what he said. However, he is a very talented voice actor and entertainer. So, and we've had this in plans for years and years and years at this point. So, it would be stupid of us to cut him on something that he said. Again, we don't agree with it, endorse it, or support it, but that's him. That's not us. There's no affiliation there.
Well, I mean, you can easily say, yeah, we're not affiliated with him, but people will make that affiliation just based on that alone.
Yeah.
I mean, actors who say or do things off camera can get axed from a film or animation or anything like that just because they did that one thing. And it happens. It happens all the time in the industry. So I don't think it should be put exclusively on them just because they did it.
Yeah, that's very true. I just feel that they went the wrong way about it. Even if they had like cut him and just had been more receptive to any frustrated fans that they have. I mean, those people are frustrated clearly for a reason because they were expecting something and now they're not going to get it. It would basically be like I don't know if they were, because there was talk about it, like, of course nothing from Nintendo, but just people like requesting that when Robin Williams died, that they include him in Breath of the Wild because of how much of a relevant role it has had in his life, and that he's vocally expressed. Because I don't know if you know this, but he named his daughter Zelda after The Legend of Zelda. Yeah. And when they released the 3DS remake of Ocarina of Time, him and his daughter were in the trailer for it, which by the way is a beautiful fucking trailer.
Oh, yeah.
I'll link it. It's just amazing. But it would basically be like if he was planned to be in the game, like as basically like his what's the word I'm looking for? Not persona, but
a tribute.
Basically, like, and then he kills himself. And it's like, well, we don't condone killing yourself, so we're cutting him from.
I don't think that's comparable, like, though.
How do you figure?
You're comparing like the ideals and views of. Well, I'm not. Again, I can't say what JonTron said because I'm not, certain. So, just by association, like, you're comparing a suicide to someone's ideals. Those are like two completely different things.
What I'm saying is like basically what that person is known for at this moment, and Robin Williams at that moment was this amazing person who was depressed and killed himself, so people would otherwise make the association of, oh, well, by having this person in this game, you must be advocating, or not advocating because that's too strong of a word, condoning suicide. You know, because you know, and I know that that's a stupid comparison to make, but somebody will make it. Just as you said that somebody will make the association that by having JonTron in the game, they would be associating themselves with these racist statements.
Well, right, but Robin Williams wasn't in his right mind when he killed himself. Like, no one is. No one's like, you know what? I feel like killing myself today. Obviously, no one in the right mind is unironically gonna say that. You know what? You say that, but then there's somebody somewhere that's just like, yeah, I'm gonna have a cup of coffee, I'm gonna have a toast, I'm gonna go over here to the store, I'm gonna get myself some stuff, and then I'm going to hang myself. I'm gonna have a nice dinner with the wife, you know, hang out with the kids, and then I'm just gonna shoot myself, you know, just a casual bullet in my head. No one.
A casual bullet. It's the best. But like, I don't know. I feel like if you're not being directly associated with this thing, like I'm trying to think of any situation where this has happened.
I think we could both agree that the situation was completely idiotic. I don't think it needed to happen. Platonic Games should have just, like, if they're gonna remove him, they could have just removed him, which they did. They removed him in a patch after the game, so people who got it day one can still hear his voice. He's a character literally in the JonTron. Yeah. Plays a character that is pooping in the John. They're clever. But besides the point.
They've always been extremely clever. Speaking of which, I think one of my favorite things about Yooka-Laylee was their idea to include the N64 version, not only within the game itself, but like its own cartridge, like its own N64 cartridge.
I have that. Yes.
Like, yeah, I remember, because I was going to ask you about that. Have you tried using it, and if so, what's it like?
Okay, so for those who don't know, I backed Yooka-Laylee when the Kickstarter was fresh and new and cool. I backed $650 something on it, because, as you know, I'm a big fan of Rare. So to see the core members of Rare team up in their own studio, where they're free of all big wig company manipulations and stuff, they don't have that. So when I heard that they're reviving, you know, the classic 3D collectathon platforming awesomeness, I immediately saved up my cash and backed it. I backed the 64-bit edition, which includes like all sorts of goodies: a signed art book and manual, a N64 cartridge with the N64 style box that's actually the same size, so it fits snugly in my box 64 collection. It's wonderful. You know, the cartridge it doesn't contain a game on it. It's actually just a USB drive. So nothing fancy. It would be really expensive and really difficult to put Yooka-Laylee on the Nintendo 64, because the Nintendo 64.
I was really curious about that. I was like, how would that even work?
Yeah, like,
because that has to, like, because of course it's not. I'm sure it's not that big of a game. I'm sure like at most it's probably like 2 gigs. But that's still a lot of cartridges you would need to put on an N64 cartridge. So I was thinking maybe they deeply compressed the game, maybe shrunk some of the levels, etc. Basically made like 2 separate games out of it. That played kind of the same.
I can actually tell you.
So I was curious whether or not it was an actual game.
Well, it's 10 gigs. Yooka-Laylee's 10 gigs, pretty much.
Wow, really?
Yeah.
That's insane. I was thinking it was like 2, but I guess that goes to show like how big the areas are, because there's not a lot going on. I can't say graphically because everybody throws that fucking word out. The definition of the characters and the models aren't super detailed.
I mean, I can disagree with you there. Everything is really high quality. Like this is like a AAA title.
Oh, I'm not saying that, but I'm saying like as far as the poly count, I'm sure they're along the lines of probably like 4,000 polys.
Oh, I mean, the environment is lush.
Say like Final Fantasy 15, which would probably have like 50,000, like for.
Okay, I see what you're saying. Well, I mean, that's a difference in style, so polygon counts, you know, associate themselves with that. But, I mean, Yooka-Laylee is by all means not a small game. It's a big game. Like, the levels, when you enter a level, the level's already big. But once you collect, like, pages, you have the option to expand the level that you're in. And they expand by at least 5 times. So, there's just some humongous levels, and then, you know, trees and such are completely 3D modeled, even the leaves. So it's not like, you know, your Call of Duty when everything's like a texture and that's it.
Yeah, because I'm gonna pull up my all right, for those of you who don't know, I really need to like make a video on this, but I'm basically making a really detailed animation right now, and that's why you haven't seen me upload anything in a few months. Well, actually, I think it's only been a month, but that doesn't really matter. Just to look at one of these, which would be the most detailed? Probably still the fucking, yeah, this one. Alright, so probably one of the most detailed, scenes that I have regarding 3D modeling and stuff is about 443 megabytes, and that's for roughly like 5 million polygons. And I feel like with a lot of this style for Yooka-Laylee, I'm about to just look at something right quick just to make sure I'm not talking out of my ass here. It looks like a lot of it is basic shapes and then either bump or displacement maps, which basically make, like, for example, if you look at a mountain, it's like, wow, that looks really detailed. I wonder how the hell they managed to sculpt all of that. Really, it's not sculpting. They'll basically have the texture itself, which looks normal, and then they'll place a map that moves the god damn it, it'll change the surface to where places extrude or intrude into themselves to make it give it that more mountainous look. I feel like looking at some of these screenshots, a lot of their a lot of the polycount would probably, other than the characters, go into at most like greenery. I don't know. I can't say much because I'd have to actually look at the files and stuff like that, which I don't have time or access to. But either way, it's pretty shocking. I figured, like, you know, like to very highball it, that would be like 5 gigabytes.
I mean, I have it on PC, so I'm able to see the file size, but it might be, you know, a little bit smaller on the console versions. Yeah. But, I mean, it's still a big game. The 64-bit cartridge is just a USB drive. I haven't plugged it in yet, so I don't know exactly, you know, what's on it. It's probably, you know, just like a 64 gig flash drive or something. Yeah. But they are including...
That's very convenient.
Yeah, they are including the 64-bit shaders in the next patch. So...
See, that's what I'm, like, most excited about, just to see what that looks like.
Yeah.
Like, how they go about doing that.
I am actually pretty interested too, though. In order to get it, you have to find the tonics that are hidden throughout levels, and once you find them...
Don't you essentially have to 100% the game in order to get that?
Essentially, yes.
Yeah.
They haven't, you know...
Because I watched the spoiler-free version of Gerard the Completionist talk about it.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the requirements are for the 64-bit one, because they haven't revealed it. But I can safely assume that it's going to be near the end of the game, just to unlock it.
Yeah. I think we got all of our thoughts out on Yooka-Laylee.
Yeah, Yooka-Laylee, it's a good game. I personally recommend it if you're a fan of the 90s 3D collectathon platformer thingamajig. If you like collecting shiny things, perfect game for you. If you're...
I'd say so too. I feel like Nick knows probably a little bit more game-wise than what I would know, because
I've played it.
I haven't personally had a chance to play it myself. What'd you say?
I said because I played it.
Yeah. But from what I've seen of it, what I've heard, it looks great. And from someone from the outside looking in, I'd say it's, if you've got money to spend on a game and you're not sure what, that's the game I'd recommend. But the other thing I wanted to talk to you, and this is going back more to the theme of Nintendo, because we haven't touched on that in a minute. The NES Classic. I want you to give me your basic thoughts. If you could sum up your thoughts on the NES Classic in a paragraph as a whole, I'd love to hear it.
Well, before I do that, let me just state I stayed out all night at Best Buy to get one. So that proves just how difficult it is to find one. Now, you won't be able to find one because they're discontinued. But, shoot. I don't even know where to begin. This thing is just so complicated. Nintendo announced the NES Classic last year. And it was supposed to be a very limited item. The hype of the item was so great that they extended manufacturing them. And there just simply wasn't enough stock. And now they just straight up discontinued the item because they said, oh, well, it was a limited item, so the 2DS XL is what we're going to be focused on now, along with the Switch. So, sorry, Nintendo fans. That's pretty much it.
And I quite personally, I feel like that's who got fucked out of that entire situation. The people who thoroughly enjoy Nintendo enough to pay $60 for games they probably already have on other devices. Those are the people that got screwed out of that, and the people who benefited the most are scalpers.
Yes, 100%.
Basically, Nick said that they were very short demand.
Or very short stock, high demand.
That's an understatement.
Yeah.
Or not high demand, but high demand, low stock. So low stock, pretty much everywhere I've gone and asked them about, they said they maybe got 6 per store.
In the
6.
in the final the final stock from Best Buy, they got the last shipment of all of them. They got my store that I stayed out all night. They had 13 in stock, and they sold out because I waited in line, and so did 12 other people.
And see, to me, that doesn't feel very fair. Like, to go on the first statement of they didn't know that this would be as big of a hit as it was, I call bullshit. I call significant bullshit because they fucking knew it. If you've done any research on emulators and things of that sort, for example, I'm going to go to a popular emulator site right now. The amount of these games, these specific games that get pirated is fucking insane. And I can't say, like, shame on you if you pirate. I pirate for this specific reason, because these games are not available, and I thought they were going to be available. See, like, the thing is, I have all these games. Every single one of these games, all 30 games that were included on this fucking thing, I own. Not legally, but I own. And it's probably stupid of me to say that, but you know what? It's whatever, because I'm making a point here. They talk about bringing this game out a little less than a year ago. I was extremely excited. But it wasn't for me that I was excited about this. I was getting this for my kids. Now, I have, for those of you who don't know, I have a 5-year-old girl, a 6-year-old boy, and a 12-year-old boy. Only one of them has really had a chance at all to play any of these older games, and that's because I trust him more so with a $60 controller. $60, which, mind you, was the price of the NES Classic. It's like, well, do I hand you a controller worth the same amount as this thing having all these games, or do I hand you a cheaper controller that I don't have to worry about you accidentally throwing, dropping, anything like that, and breaking? It was for the experience of my kids, because when I was young, really, really young, like 3 years old, my mother and I used to play the regular Nintendo, because like Nick said, we both grew up on Nintendo systems. It wasn't until I was about 11 or 12 that I made the transition to a PlayStation system.
Traitor.
Sue me. But, alright, let me see if I can't find some statistics on NES emulation while we're talking about this. But basically, they talk about releasing this thing. I'm super pumped because I'm like, finally, you know, I have the perfect thing so, you know, my kids can play games because I love games and I want them to learn to appreciate them if this is something that they're into, which pretty much all three of them have shown that they love video games. And because of the low production of it, extremely low, like it sold, I don't know, like...
It sold almost 3 million, I believe.
Which is insane to think about, but then when you take into perspective that there were only 6 per store in the initial launch of it, and then they've, like, Nick says that they were production, like, everybody says that they were, like, different sets of production where they, like, released it again. But I'm going to be perfectly honest, I don't feel like you could even consider that, like, a next, like, a release of them because there were so few of those that it made the initial launch look huge. You know, like, I would hear, like, oh, well, there's going to be some in here at this one particular store that's nowhere near you. And, you know, that's not, to me, that's not exactly releasing the console, like, in a second production line.
Well, here's the thing. Nintendo, I believe that Nintendo greatly underestimated the NES Classic. Not because, you know, the amount of games downloaded from piracy websites. It's just the fact that the Wii U flopped so hard. They cautiously, you know, manufactured the NES Classic and the Switch. They didn't think the Switch was going to be a hot item, and it is. And Nintendo, that shocked Nintendo. Reggie was like, holy crap. Like, this is real. And when you look at the Wii U and you're like, wow, there was like less than, you know, 20 million sold in its whole life. That's honestly depressing. And so that put Nintendo in a really tight spot. And when you're coming out with a new console right after one just flopped, you're going to make less of that because you don't think demand is going to be as high. But Nintendo changed their tune with their marketing. They went back to their old red logo versus the, you know, silver one or the white one. They actually used both during the Wii and DS life cycle. But they finally went back to that. Then they, you know, just completely upped their marketing. And so their marketing pretty much saved the, you know, the Switch and lo and behold the NES Classic, because they just kept releasing trailers and all of that stuff for both systems. And even then, they greatly underestimated how hot these items would be. And now that the NES Classic is discontinued right after, well, like 4 months after they announced they would double production due to the demand and they would extend a little bit longer, that it's kind of a complicated situation. They canceled the NES Classic for a multitude of reasons. One of them being that it was, you know, supposed to be just a seasonal item for the holidays, and that the 2DS XL was recently announced. They wanted to use all of their manufacturing prowess to, you know, keep those, you know, Switches and those 2DS XLs pumping out. So they got rid of their, I guess, say, less successful item per se, in exchange for, you know, a new item that would potentially sell more.
Yeah, I can agree with that. However, I don't know, it's hard to explain. There was nothing that I noticed that was wrong with the NES, other than, I think, of course, with the fact that the cord was apparently very, very short for the controllers.
Yeah.
But aside for this, it's not only a dream for the people who, gaming-wise, live in the past or deeply enjoy retro video games like myself and Nick. But there's also parents like myself who, like, they don't give a shit about the Switch. They didn't give a shit about the Wii U. they probably cared about the Wii. But when they heard that, oh, these games that I played as a kid are coming out again in this really cool, neat little package that I can share with my children, my nephews, my nieces, my cousins, etc. It sold like 3 million, as Nick said, but this had the potential to outsell probably every other this probably could have been a competitor in the console generation.
I mean, in a sense,
and it's not fair that. Go ahead.
In a sense, it is, and I just remembered. I think another potential reason, which makes sense to me business wise, another reason I think they canceled the NES Classic is it doesn't want to interfere with Nintendo's Virtual Console that they are going to be releasing on the Switch, because you're getting 30 games for $60. I suck at math, so that's.
It's essentially like 50 cents a game, or no, $2 for a game.
So you're
instead of the $5 plus that you would have to pay for a NES game on the Virtual Console,
right?
But that goes back to what I was saying. In order to play a game on the Virtual Console, you would have to, at the very least, purchase a console that has Virtual Console. Now, of course, to my knowledge, every single console that Nintendo has released, both handheld and console, has had Virtual Console on it since, I believe, the 3DS.
Since the Wii.
I guess.
I mean, I guess if you count the GameCube because of certain games, but that's a stretch.
Yeah. So see, the thing about that is that you have to purchase that console, which I believe the cheapest and most accessible would be a 2DS. Standard 2DS at about $70.
Yeah, I believe it's.
So you have to pay $70 for the 2DS, then $5 for whatever games you want to get each, rather than $60 to get all these games and be able to plug it into your computer, or not computer, but your TV in HD, mind you.
Right. But that's just a business. Business thing.
I think the argument there is accessibility.
Yeah, I mean, I can agree with you there. But I think that it wasn't on Nintendo's plan at all to manufacture the NES Classic past the holidays, but because people are like wanting one so bad, they were like, all right, let's just make more. Because they greatly underestimated demand, and it's understandable because the Wii U was just such a flop, and they thought that people were going to jump off the Wii onto the Wii U with no questions asked, and so they greatly overproduced consoles. I mean, lesson learned for Nintendo, and I can agree on why they underestimated demand. It just makes sense. I mean, I can't knock them on that. I mean, if you're a company and you release a product that just absolutely flops and you're coming out with another one, you're probably going to be a little bit more cautious on how many you make.
Yeah. See, I completely agree and understand with that. Because that was really shocking, and if you think about it from a retrospective, it's a shock that the Wii U did so bad, because look at all the amazing games that are on it that are exclusive to the Wii. I could sit here and name like 20 off the top of my head, like Smash Brothers, Mario Kart, Pokken Tournament,
Bayonetta 1 and 2.
1 and 2. 2 is exclusive to the Nintendo Wii U. So all these different games, I don't know. I guess the only fault of the Wii U was the marketing. That has to be it, because I can't explain it any other way. Yeah, that goes into marketing a lot too, because it's like, oh well, isn't that an extension like the for those who know the Sega 32 or the Sega CD?
Yeah. Tatsumi Kimishima, the current president of Nintendo, even said, the Wii U was a terrible name, and he advised multiple times to the late president Satoru Iwata, whom I love so much, by the way. He advised him that this isn't a good idea to name it this console, to name it the Wii U. He just said it's bad. But they did it anyway. It turned out to be a flop. The marketing was terrible. Even Nintendo didn't have confidence in it. That was plainly obvious. Not by their games, but just by their online presence and their marketing, and they just didn't have confidence in it. And to the fact that they killed it off earlier than expected, speaks volumes of, that they just really wanted to move on. And I'm glad they did. I'm glad they went back to their classic red logo, their classic marketing, and they're doing much better. They're doing a lot better. I mean, they were losing money on each Switch made for a while. And people were like, oh, Nintendo's doomed. They're going to lose all their money. They're going to go third party, bankrupt. Apparently to the internet, Nintendo's been doomed since 1889. And
yeah, I think both of us can vouch that a lot of those people are autistic plebs who don't know what the fuck they're talking about in the slightest.
But Nintendo can easily lose money every year till like 2060, and they'd still not be in the red. They have plenty of money because of the Wii, the DS, and now the 3DS, and they're making money on the Switch. So they're just adding to that war chest every year. So I think they're doing fine. I can agree that it was bad for consumers because the NES Classic was such a hot item and they discontinued it. But business-wise, it makes a lot of sense to me. Though I'm still mad that I had to wait all night just to get one of the final shipment, and people are selling it for like upwards of $300-$400, and it's just ridiculous, and I hate it. I
think what could have solved the entire situation, because I was frustrated that it was so difficult to find. Like I remember I was really young when this happened. I believe let's see. The Wii was like what, 2005, 2006?
November 2006, I believe.
Yeah, so I was 14 at the time. I remember how difficult it was to find one. I never thought to buy one because I was too busy at the time of my PlayStation 2. But
see, and that's the same situation there, because the GameCube was almost a flop. It didn't do as bad as the Wii U. Actually, hold on, I'm wrong. The GameCube sold less than the Wii U. I could be getting confused. Besides the point.
With things like that, like you can't really consider that, because with how much more popular, because that's such a huge gap in time. That's like trying to compare NES, like the original Nintendo.
Right. Well, I'm not comparing.
PS4.
I'm not comparing based on numbers alone. The GameCube didn't do so hot versus the wildly successful PlayStation 2, the number 2 selling console of all time. The Nintendo DS line beats the PlayStation 2. But when I saw that, I was completely shocked. I had no idea that the DS was doing so well. Yeah.
It's actually news to me now that it finally hit number 1, but I guess when you consider that the 3DS and 2DS are part of that.
Well, the 3DS and 2DS are a completely separate line. Literally, it's the DS, DS Lite, DSi, and DSi XL. Those 4 contributed to the overall success of the DS. And it's number 1, number 2 is PlayStation 2, and number 3 is Wii. So you have 2 Nintendo consoles that are number 1, and even Nintendo didn't expect it.
When you consider like the amount of games are the like highest selling game series, I'm pretty confident like 5 of them are Nintendo series. Like I know Pokemon and Mario are.
Wii Sports Resort's the number 1. Yeah,
really?
Yeah, Wii Sport and Wii Sports Resort. I guess they count as the same game. I'm not quite sure. But they are number 1.
Wow. But going back to the Nintendo Classic, I think my biggest problem with it, like I can understand the whole like, whoa, I can let it go as like, whoa, we weren't expecting it to sell like that heavily. You know, personally, I consider that bullshit. It's like, how could you not? I mean, you guys pay attention to the emulation stuff. But my problem was the adaptability, or lack thereof, rather. Their response to how well it sold was, we're going to stop making them. And like you said, that has a lot to do with affecting the amount of other products sold that were more important to the company. But at the end of the day, to me, it's like money is money. It doesn't matter which of the consoles you get it from. If you get like tons of money from this particular console, then you can put it towards production on the console that you're really wanting. It's basically like, you know, you work a part-time job so you have money to fulfill your hobbies. And I feel like they really dropped the ball with that, because had they sold, because I mean, I was instantly hooked the second I saw that was a thing. I was like, okay, I'm getting this fucking thing. But I was so burned by that now I'm like, I don't know if I really want to buy anything from Nintendo for a minute. I'm just really frustrated with them, and I don't feel like they're really considering my feelings as a customer. I know that's really fucking just like super was an SJW to say, but I feel like when it comes to something that I've cared about so much for such a long time, like Nintendo and their products, I was really hurt by that, because I had always felt that for the most part they care more about it's not you know, a business to them. It's more of just making good quality content.
Right, but as a business, you know, they have to make money. Like, they have developers that really care about their gamers, but they have to be able to function as a company to continue to bring us those games. And if their Nintendo Switch and Nintendo 2DS XL is more important than the NES Classic, which is a steal because you're getting 30 games for $60, it's crazy, because a lot of them are really expensive if you just buy them in their original form. I think it was just meant towards collectors, but I blame more of the scalpers who bought all of them. Recently, a gaming page on Facebook I'm a part of, I saw a guy post, he just bought 2 shipment boxes of them. From the store, he just walked in and bought all of them and walked out. So I blame that more on the store than on Nintendo at that point. But I'm not to say they're not to be blamed for some things. Like, yeah, it kind of was a dick move, but as a business, you kind of have to think about that. But I was going to go back to the GameCube thing for a second. I mean, with the GameCube, it wasn't a hugely successful console. And then when you have the Wii, it's the same exact thing with the Wii U and the Switch. Like, the Wii wasn't successful, and then you have the Switch, and they didn't think was going to be that great either. But it was, just like the Wii was. Nintendo was like, holy crap. So it's a similar situation, and no one really wins in that situation. Because Nintendo wants to sell you their console, but they don't have enough. So they have to, you know, put their focus on making more. And that's one of the reasons why I think they canceled the NES Classic. Because they really wanted to focus on getting their main console out. The NES Classic was just kind of a side thing they did. Just for collectors and people who really wanted to play the classic games again. But all hope is not lost, because Reggie Fils-Aimé said it's canceled for now. He even said that they might bring it up later down the line, like maybe a year from now. And to add to the little speculation flame, there's a rumor from a very credible source that they are developing the Super Nintendo Classic, which will be out this holiday
Hopefully
season.
They take a lot of that, because I'm a big fan of the original NES, but I believe when I think of Nintendo and a lot of their like super standout games that have always stayed with me, a lot of them come from the Super Nintendo. So I really, really hope that they learn their lesson. I'm going to be really skeptical about buying it. Like, I'll probably, like, when I see the ad for it, I'll be like, all right, well, let's see how this shit show goes. But if they learn their lesson, I will you can quote me on this, I will probably break down and buy it. But as of right now, if they don't learn anything, I'm probably not. But regarding the Switch, they probably weren't expecting it to do as well. But a lot of the reason that it did as well as it did was probably because of Breath of the Wild, which I guess is a good transition into the next game that we were going to talk about. I don't even have to ask you what you think about this game, because I already know. I haven't seen a single fucking person other than maybe Anita Sarkeesian, but who the fuck cares what she thinks. that this game is probably one of the best Legend of Zelda games since Ocarina of Time. Am I correct in saying that?
Mostly, yeah. My favorite Zelda is Skyward Sword. It's very controversial, just saying that. But I like not its linear design, but how the characters interact with each other. Because in past 3D Zeldas, when they talk to each other, it was just like, they look at you, flap movements, then they stop until you click A. And then that was it. But they didn't show any emotion. But with Skyward Sword, they spent so much time on the character animations and how they interacted with each other. That was just like, wow, this is not like any other Zelda game I've ever played. And I actually didn't have a problem with the motion controls in Skyward Sword. A lot of people did. I didn't. Personal preference. Get over it, honestly. Like, I don't care if you like the game. I did. That's all that matters to me. Though I can understand, why some people didn't. It's not everyone's game. But Breath of the Wild, I think, took that to the next step. Because voice acting, oh my god. Like, I haven't seen voice acting.
And what I've heard is really, really good.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, it's not like, oh my god, the best, but it's not by any means bad. But the fact that Zelda, like the characters in Zelda have voice acting, it's crazy. Like, I haven't.
It's the first ever. Well, I mean, it's not the first ever. I mean, we do have the CDI games to consider.
Yeah. CDI games. I have a CDI.
Like, that's kind of like the perfect comparison, because that was like the first time that they ever have voices. And I'm sure there were a lot of people excited for that. Like, oh my god, voices! But little did anybody know that voice acting for video games in the
little
90s
did they
and
know
early 2000s was absolute fucking garbage.
Little did they know.
Like, almost every single game.
Little did they know they actually released it. It was like a joke that just went too far.
See, that also goes with Mario, because they did the Mario CDI game. And like before that, like, these characters hadn't talked outside of a cartoon or a live action film. Ugh.
Great, I'll grab my stuff.
Oh my god, speaking of which, have you did you watch Super Mario Brothers Super Show when you were younger?
Yes, I did.
I had never noticed this when I was a kid, but on the first episode, there was a clip where Mario and Luigi were talking to each other, and then like Luigi goes, "Well, Mario, you have a little spaghetti on your overalls."
Oh my god! Yes.
And Mario goes, like, is like somewhat disguised by the laugh track, but he's like, "Well, fuck you, Luigi." And I'm like, what? They didn't even try to censor that?
I think that's just a case of like, it really sounds like it, but he's just saying thank you, Luigi. But the laugh track and everything else is just like really clouding it in. It's I remember reading about that. It was just so great. I just kept watching it and laughing. I sent it to everyone in the cast. And they're like, this is dumb. I'm like, it's great. It's perfect.
But like going back to the Hotel Mario thing, it's like this is the first time within the games that these characters have talked, and it's fucking awful. Same with the Zelda characters. Oh my god. But that, like, okay, so I'm sure you've seen probably not seen, but like at least acknowledged the animation breakdown video that I did. I was deeply considering my next one being the Zelda CDI games, like breaking down the animation for them. But the voice acting in those games is so like ironically funny. Like, they don't mean it to be, I'm sure, but it's just so funny.
Well, it's
not into the pit, it burns.
You must get the map of Korodai.
I wonder what's for dinner.
I'm so hungry, I can eat an Octorok.
I just saved you from Ganon. You did not.
Great.
Oh, my favorite is like my favorite is like at the end of Faces of Evil, when he beats Ganon. He, like right after that, he's like, I just saved you from Ganon. You did not. And like towards the end of that, and the wizard's like, or I don't know what he is. He's wizard, genie, what the fuck ever. Carpet guy. We'll call him Carpet Guy. So he's like, thanks to you, Link, all of Hyrule is saved. And then he just looks at Zelda. I guess that deserves a kiss. She's like, And then the next thing is like him raising his hand. I won! It's the fucking great, like, you have to see it, like, to appreciate it. It's just like, I don't understand. Like, this is a very like, even back then, this is a very popular series. Why? Why could you not do this right? Like, I can understand Resident Evil because, you know, like, that was the first time it ever, you know, was released, period. You know, of course they're going to have, you know, not the best of anything because it hasn't, you know, it hasn't portrayed itself as this groundbreaking series yet. But Zelda, really, like, the second most popular fucking series of all time in video games?
I mean, I pin the blame on pretty much Panasonic. Oh, no, sorry. Not, wait. Philips. I mean, they outsourced the animation to an international... No, okay. None of the people who did the animation lived in America at the time. They lived... shoot, I think India? I want to say India.
Yep. Probably Indonesia. Indonesia has a lot of animation studios like that. I don't know how familiar you are with the Tom and Jerry show.
I mean, I used to watch it.
All right, so there are several iterations with generations and stuff. Like there's, you know, of course the Chuck Jones version, and then just like several different ones where there's a different director, and of course the tone changes for them. But there's one in particular from, I believe, either the 70s or the 80s. And it's the same team who did Droopy. But they outsourced the animation for it, and it's easily the most off-putting of all of the Tom and Jerry iterations. Even like the new ones, which I'll admit aren't all that great. But the name of this one is the Tom and Jerry Comedy Show. But there's just everything about it is just very off-putting. So I don't know. I don't really understand, because even if it's like, well, we're outsourcing it, that doesn't really mean much. But usually, like, for some reason with the animation, like when you say you're outsourcing, everybody just kind of goes, oh, fuck. I don't know. I can't really understand it myself, because as an animator, I try my hardest to make sure everything's solid and smooth and looks good from any aspect, angle, anything like that. Like, I don't understand just kind of like half-assing something, which is what I feel like a lot of these companies do, or they're like amateur, like college. I can't even say college students, because I mean, I feel like I'm 10 times more competent in animation than a lot of these people. I don't know. I don't.
Well, I don't know. It's kind of complicated, because any animation studio, like especially in Japan, animation studios in Japan, they pay. The pay is awful. Like, you're living well below the poverty line in Japan if you're an animator, because you only get, like, I think 2 cents a animation cell.
Yeah, I think animation in Japan is like it's totally like its own beast, because like you said, they overwork themselves significantly when it comes to animation. I feel like I work pretty hard, but I'm sure if I compared my hours to their hours, mine would be nothing.
You pretty much give up your social life to work on an anime you really want. And it's nothing to sneeze at. I mean, there's animators that have died from just overworking themselves. One recently, I forget his name and what anime he worked on, but he was working some pretty long hours, and he told his coworkers he was just going to take a break and go lay down, and then he never woke up. He just died.
Ugh.
So and that brought to light some of the problems animation studios have in Japan. Like, they don't pay their workers enough. They work them really long hours, and it's just a terrible situation for a medium that is so loved and is widespread around the world. Yeah.
Especially coming from Japan. Because anime, I feel, other than American cartoons, is the most popular form of animation at the point. I mean, of course, I'm sure numbers compare nothing to like Disney films and shit like that when you consider like grossing.
Oh yeah, Disney is
or streaming or anything like that. But yeah, like everybody, I can't say everybody, but I feel like the general consensus is like when you consider like credible animation, you think Disney or Disney Associates, which is like Studio Ghibli, Pixar, shit like that. DreamWorks, Blue Sky, and then you have like animation studios from Japan. Like Toei,
Madhouse. There's many others.
There's so many. It's almost like music where the most popular forms of music come from either America or Western Europe.
Really? Western Europe? That's interesting.
Like Britain, for example. Fucking Sweden. No, it's either Sweden or Switzerland. But yeah, like tons of fucking music. But I don't know.
We got way off topic.
I feel one thing that's been very yeah, we really did. I told you before we even started this, we were just shoot shit. I said it again. I might want to start taking shots every time I say that. But going back to Breath of the Wild, I feel like one of the most divisive things is the weapon system.
I have no problems with it, though I did get a little frustrated because you're like, you have this really awesome weapon, and it's like, oh, it's about to break. It's weak, and then a few more shots, and it's over. You lose that weapon forever until you find another one. But I've heard a lot of opinions like, oh, if they introduced a system where you can repair the weapons, then that would be fine.
I was gonna say, because you know what that reminds me a lot of. I don't know how much you've played it. Are you familiar with the Dark Cloud series, or if you're in Europe, Dark Chronicle?
No, I'm not.
Basically, it has a very similar system to how Breath of the Wild is, except with the exception of in Dark Cloud, the weapon durability is significantly higher. As in, like, the weapon may have like 50 hit points on it, and like every time you hit a normal enemy, it like takes away 1, and then every time you hit like a harder enemy, like maybe like a golem or something, it takes away 2 or 3, maybe even 5 at most. But you have repair powders that you can buy or find within the dungeons that will completely repair the HP, and then you still keep that weapon, because the way it works is that you continuously build up these weapons over and over and over again, and then you upgrade them, and then they become something else until they're ultimately this massively powerful weapon. I feel like if they had done something like that, there would have been no quells there.
I mean,
I feel like they should have maybe saved that for like hard mode, like, because they are apparently working on a hard mode.
Yeah, and I think introducing like a way to repair your weapons would kind of undermine the fact that you are in a wasteland that Zelda or that Ganon has created, and not many people make new weapons, and the only weapons you could find are stuff that's on the ground, like rusty weapons or weapons that enemies have created by using different materials. And if you just automatically, oh yeah, there is no punishment for me overusing this weapon. Like even the Master Sword, if you use it a lot, it becomes unusable for a certain amount of time. But it recharges because it's the Master Sword.
Apparently it has like an energy bar or something along the lines of that. Like it doesn't ever break, but it has like an energy bar. Like after that's done, you can't use it anymore for a certain amount of time. That's a very compelling point, and I agree with you. A argument I was going to make was how, say for example, in Kingdom Hearts 2, everybody knows I fucking love this game, and I talk about it way too much, but I don't give a shit at this point. In the easier difficulties, you don't really take into consideration all the different abilities and powers available to you. For example, in my first time playing Kingdom Hearts, pretty much all I did was normal fighting with the occasional drive form. Then when the remake came out for the PS3, I played critical mode, and I took a little bit more into consideration, like, okay, well, I have all these different abilities available to me. I should really start considering which abilities I should equip, which ones are probably not the best for me. And then when I played level 1 critical mode, which for those of you who don't know, there's an ability in most recent Square games where you can stay at level 1 if the game is designed around that. Kingdom Hearts, pretty much all of them have been, that has been a feature. But when I was in that, playing that version of the game, I had never taken advantage of every single resource available to me, which made the game really compelling and much more interesting, because now I was doing different strategies that I would have never thought to do. Like, for example, like, oh, I'm about to be swarmed and any of these enemies could kill me in one hit. I should use Chicken Little to have him group them up in a magnet so I can hit them and sustain the least amount of damage possible. But I feel like it should be accessible to pretty much anybody, because there's going to be, there's going to be the kids who don't understand this. And of course, it's like, well, they'll just get smarter and learn the process. But I feel like that's something that they could have worked around, like, again, with some sort of difficulty mode. Again, they're working on a hard mode, but I feel like they should have expanded it beyond just, this is how many hits you can take within a heart piece before you die. This is how many hits an enemy will take before they die. I feel like difficulties in video games should attend to more than just that. I feel like completely new strategy should be taken into account based on the difficulty level. Say, for example, Mega Man 2, where there's certain enemies who, if you shoot them once, they're dead in normal. But if you play on, or I believe it's easy, and I'm thinking of Resident Evil, perhaps, where it's like normal and professional. But in Mega Man 2, there's two different difficulties. We'll just call them easy and hard. Easy, if you shoot them once, they're dead. In hard, if you shoot them, their patterns and the way they go about either attacking you or moving are completely different. And you have to adjust yourself to that. I feel like that would not only make the game more interesting by having that version where you don't have to worry about your weapons breaking, or at least nowhere near as fast, or you can repair them, to the version where your shit's going to break all the time, get used to it. I feel like that would be more comfortable for, I think, everybody across the board.
I mean, shoot, I had a good point, but I lost it. Just kind of forgot.
I did talk for like fucking 5 minutes. I'm sure if I skim through my audio file right now, it'll probably just be nonstop talking for 5 minutes.
I mean, the whole thing that pulls people into Zelda, and especially Breath of the Wild, is the fact that these weapons do break, and that you have to come up with different types of solutions than running in with a weapon that you can repair and just keep guns a-blazing. Now you have to figure out some unique solutions to, puzzles and, enemy count and stuff like that. So I think it's a good feature to have that these weapons do break. At the beginning of the game, I think it's necessary for you to really understand that you can't just run in and just beat these guys up with one sword. It is going to break, and you need to figure out some unique solutions. Later in the game, you do come across, more powerful weapons. I think it's balanced out accordingly. I'm not sure if it needs to be changed, honestly, because that would just detract from, this wasteland of a game.
Yeah, I think at this point it would be kind of a waste to try and change it, because it would undermine the original development choice. I'm just saying, like, if I were to do this is how I would do it. Like, I don't think I would really have the weapons break in that way. You can just have all these different weapons at your disposal, which would be really interesting in the whole inventory. Where the hell is this going? Where is he putting this aspect? But
because weapons aren't hard to find in the game. You find them everywhere, and if you fight, you can go through a shrine multiple times. You can go through them as many times as you want, and you can fight the same enemies in those shrines and get their weapons. So it's not like, oh no, I can't find a weapon. You can find them anywhere. So I don't know. Maybe in a future Zelda game, where they introduce the same gameplay style, and if the game calls for it, like if the storyline isn't like where you're in a wasteland, then yeah, I'm all for it. But I feel like it would detract from the whole story elements that you can just repair your weapon and go in and kick Ganon's balls. Like, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going with this, but I just don't think it's necessary for Breath of the Wild. In a future Zelda game that uses this type of gameplay, sure, if it calls for it.
I feel like that also just goes into, like, it's the first of its kind. Kind of like how Ocarina was the first 3D. And, you know, it took maybe a few tries to get Z-targeting perfect. And while other people may find this not exactly correct, but I'm sure you'll agree with me that I feel like Twilight Princess and or Skyward Sword was like the perfection of Z-targeting, because now you're able to do all these different things within this targeting system that was created, I guess at that point, like 10 years beforehand. Or like how basically like Mario Galaxy or Mario Galaxy 2 was a perfection of the 3D Mario formula.
There's actually two different types of 3D Mario games. There's the linear Mario 3D World, Galaxy 1 and 2, and then there's the not so linear Super Mario Sunshine and Super Mario 64. Even Nintendo came out and said this. They were like, yeah, we recognize there's two different types of 3D Marios. Super Mario Odyssey is going to be on the open world like 64 and Sunshine is. So, just a little trivia there for you kiddies out there.
But I'm sure you understand.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. You know, Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword expanded upon the Z targeting system and made it better for those games.
With motion controls.
So,
yeah. Take it or leave it, it was a great addition. You know, regardless of whether it didn't work right all the time, like people say.
They just didn't want to get up and move.
Yeah.
But yeah. What besides Zelda? What else do we have in line? I think that was it, right?
No, the final thing we wanted to talk about, because you talked about it in that that particular radio session that you have with those guys. I can't remember. Fuck, I can't remember.
Super
their
Radio
names.
Bros on KUGR.
Would you like to shout them out for the?
Oh, it's Super Radio Bros on KUGR. Radio.
But you guys lightly talked about Persona.
Oh yeah, the Persona 5 streaming issue thing.
So basically, for those who don't know, Atlas, who are the people who make the Persona games, they released, I don't know, I guess statements saying that they didn't want Let's Players either, I don't know if it's recording or live, or live. Yeah, okay, both. That beyond a certain point, they didn't want people streaming the game. Essentially putting restrictions on these people's accessibility on playing these games online for their fans and whatever. I want your opinion on what you think of this type of restriction, because I'm pretty sure if it pans out well, this won't be the first time that we see it. Or this won't be the last time that we see it.
I feel for both sides. From a fan side, I stream and I do Let's Plays and playthroughs and stuff. So, as a fan, I'd really want to, stream or play through your game. So it kind of feels like a betrayal of sorts to tell me I can't do any of that. I can't share this experience with anybody online because they don't want me spoiling the story. Now, on the flip side, this is a single-player only game. There is no multiplayer at all. So you're paying that money to experience this story. Now they didn't want you doing that, because if you spoiled it for others, or if other people saw the game, they'd be like, well, I saw the story, I guess there's really no need for me to buy it and play it. That's their mindset. They're thinking, oh well, if this could really kill our sales because there's no multiplayer, it's just, that's it. What you see is what you get. And I can understand like that reasoning. I can understand both sides. But I don't know. I don't know how else to say it. Like, I get both sides. I really do. I think there could have been a better solution, though I'm not sure what, to be honest, because it's a complicated situation. Telling your fans that they can't record, but it can really kill sales if, you know, people are spoiled the entire story and then they're like, well, I guess I don't need to buy it. There's no other proposition for customers to buy this game if there's really only a story mode. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I completely sympathize with that. But the thing, all right, so I'm gonna kind of demonstrate this real quick. If you get a good enough time in the original Metroid, you find out Samus is a girl.
Oh, she is?
Let's see what else.
Oh my god.
Right? Let's see what else. I'm trying to, like, because I could easily blast tons of fucking really spoiler-ish stuff, like, from games of the past year or two. But that's the point. Like you could be listening to this right now and I could just drop a bombshell like Samus is a girl. You know, just like, but more 2016, 2017. Like, I could easily just be like, tell you some stuff you didn't want to hear about Final Fantasy 15. I was like, oh, what the fuck, dude? Like, it's that simple to spoil a game. So I don't feel like that's really controlling, like, the problem area. Like, I don't feel like streamers are your issue. Like, when you're making a game like that and you don't want the story to be spoiled. Because if anything, they're promoting the game for you, and I'm not going to watch somebody play the game if I'm not already interested in buying it, or I don't already own it. If anything, when I'm told that I can't do something with this product that I'm purchased, I'm kind of, you know, less incentivized to buy it.
I mean, yeah, I completely understand, which is why I was like, it's kind of difficult to give a solution for both sides.
One thing I could say on the because I don't know how much volume it speaks upon Atlus themselves. Atlus have made some amazing games. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, them and Level 5, they're responsible. The two of them together are responsible for a game that I really, really like, and I'm sure you've heard of it too. I don't want to say a specific game, but I know it's between one or two different games. Hang on, let me look.
Is it like a crossover game or?
No, it's like either Dark Cloud or like Dragon Quest something. Hang on. I'm not sure, but it doesn't really matter. They put out amazing games before. Atlus, in some way, shape, or form, has put out amazing games before. The thing that bothers me about it, though, is that do you really think that little of your game that the story is all that's there? Because I don't see, now of course I'm not a spokesman for Square Enix, but I don't see them when Final Fantasy 7 Remake comes out or Kingdom Hearts 3. I know 7 Remake's a little bit less liable for this, but Kingdom Hearts 3, because this is such a hyped up game, I don't see them putting streaming restrictions on it, because if you go into a stream, you should logically understand that you could walk in at an important plot point. And that if you really want to like have a good test of whether you want to buy this game or not, you should look up gameplay or like a part 1 of this, you know, because you're not going to get too heavily spoiled on a part 1. It's more like, you know, usually the last like 10 episodes of a series that you get all the really heavy bits. I don't really care for the Persona series, but I feel like there should be enough there that, you know, you don't play it once and you're done. I'm the type of person that if I buy a game, it's because I know I'm going to play it, beat it, complete it, and then play it again. I'm sure you sympathize with me at some level with that, Nick. But I don't know, like, Like, I bought Final Fantasy 15, and I've played through it and beaten it 3 times. And I've gotten every single trophy for the main part of the game. I'm still working on the DLC stuff for it. But I put in a good 200 hours plus into that game, and that's only been out for 5 months. When I bought Final Fantasy X years and years ago, I put 400 hours on that game. I bought Dragon Quest VIII, I put 300 hours into that game. Like, and I know that not everybody is going to share my sympathies with that. They will watch or play a game once and then they're done with it. So I'm not speaking for any majority, but what I am saying is that I'm the type of person who, if I'm buying a game, it's because I want to play it for a prolonged amount of time, and no playthrough somebody else does is going to sate me on that.
I mean, it's kind of a tough thing, because, I mean, again, you can't speak for everyone. But I don't know. It's a tough situation for both parties. I mean, I don't believe in telling your fans what they can and can't do with their product that they purchased from you. But I mean, I can sympathize, because especially Persona has not had a big following up until recently. I mean, there's been a cult following, but it hasn't been like a mainstream deal. They've also had very small budgets. So, and this is the first, I think, maybe if not the first, one of the first Persona games with such a high budget. And so I think they wanted to like try and protect that. Like if they get enough sales and it can justify future games, but if they, in their mindset, they think if all these people are just gonna watch it on a Let's Play or stream, then they may not have the desire to purchase it, and that will hurt our bottom line. You know, that'll hurt the bottom line in sales, and so they, as a company, they want to avoid that. I'm not saying is what they're doing is right, but they're learning because they've eased up on it, because they said now they lifted, you know, a lot of the restrictions.
Yeah, they have made changes to the restrictions that you could progress a little bit further in the game. Going back to Final Fantasy, regarding that, because of course, very popular thing, especially if you're streaming or anything like that, you'll get the phrase when you reach a certain point in the game or something like that. This scene is blocked. Any recording will resume once this is over. Essentially, I'm sure you've seen that. There was, I don't know if I would really consider it a spoiler, but when you beat Final Fantasy 15, the splash screen at the beginning changes, and that was a particularly blocked scene, which I found interesting. But going further on games that like for story wise you don't want spoiled, to be perfectly honest, if I'm only really interested in the story, I wasn't planning on buying the game anyways. I'll go on YouTube and just watch a set of cutscenes for that. You know, I'm not going to go watch somebody stream it because, you know, I don't give a shit about it. A popular game that I can think of where I felt that way was Mortal Kombat X. I just wanted to see what the story was going to be like. And then I just watched like small gameplay clips of some of the DLC, because while I don't really give a shit about the series or the games, I will admit that the DLC, the characters that they include are fucking awesome. I don't know if you've seen, but they basically put a bunch of slasher characters in the game. Like they have Jason Voorhees, which was known from pretty much the beginning of the release of the game. But since then, they've also released a Xenomorph, Predator, and Leatherface from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. Which I think that's awesome. I think that's, you know, you can't ask for much better than that. And people probably should have expected it from Mortal Kombat 9 when they put Freddy Krueger in the game on the Xbox 360 version, whereas I believe the PlayStation version had Kratos.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, again, everyone has different opinions on how they view this. There are people who will just, if they're not interested, go online and watch it. There are some people, if they are interested, they'll watch it. Maybe they'll accidentally watch too much and go, well, I'm already balls deep in the hole. Might as well keep digging.
Right. Might as well finish.
And I don't know. It's just a dumb situation. There's no easy solution. There never really is for a company versus consumer. There's never an easy solution. Because you have to account in both sides. But I mean,
I agree. I feel like if it was that open and shut, there wouldn't be that much of a discussion.
No, it'd just be like, yeah, they messed up.
Yeah, this is fucked up. Yeah, you're right. All right, next topic. But yeah, I mean, I understand to an extent if they feel like it's that deep of a thing. And,
like if it was that concerning in the first place, then there might be some data backing that claim up. There has to be.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would just be.
Yeah. I feel like that'd be really stupid just to like go blast out there. Hey, don't stream our Game Pass's point, faggot.
Excuse me, Atlas. What was that last part?
Because we said so. I said, don't stream the game. No, the other part. What other part? I didn't say anything past that. Faggot. What? You said it again. What?
I got my eye on you, Atlas.
That'd be like Scott Cawthon, and I say this because I'm holding a Five Nights at Freddy's thing. That'd be like Scott Cawthon being like, "Hey, don't stream my Game Pass like night 3, boy."
Well, I mean, that's kind of a tough thing because like,
because that's a game where
it thrived because of Let's Players. Though.
Like the first two are more, are better about this than the third and the fourth. Or the, well, no, the first, second, and fourth are the best ones, in my opinion, as far as gameplay goes. But the third and the fifth are more, I watched those because, story. You know, especially the fifth because, you know, the third has some level of replayability, but very, 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 very,
well,
very,
I mean,
very,
the
very
Five
little,
Nights at,
especially in comparison to the
Five Nights at Freddy's series got
Go ahead.
popular because of a Let's Player. Or just Let's Players in general. So that's where the whole, it's tough because you have I think you have evidence of both, where a game can thrive because of the online community and a game that can really suffer because of an online community. I wish I had, you know, I wish I could think of a game that actually had this problem to support that.
Probably a point and click game. Because that's a very divisive genre. Not a lot of people like it. I'm one of the people that I'm not super crazy about it, but if I'm somewhat interested in the plot, I'll at least watch somebody else play it.
I think maybe just story-based games have...
like Telltale.
Yeah, like... yeah, that's a good example. There was a game that I watched that I decided, you know, I'm just gonna watch. I'm not gonna play because I watched so much of it. I was like, it's not worth getting for me now because I've already watched like half the game.
Yeah.
The Wolves Among Us, I think that's what it's called.
Yeah. For me, I was deeply considering watching the Tales of the Borderlands game that they have because they have it, and I'm deeply interested in the Borderlands games, but I really don't care about those type of games. But the interesting thing about it was that happened to be one of the free games for PlayStation Plus this month.
Shoot.
And I otherwise wasn't wanting to play it, but now that I technically own it, I was like, well, I mean, fuck, okay.
Oh, man. Shoot, I can't think of anything else.
You know, but otherwise I would have just watched it on YouTube and I would be like, okay.
Yeah, they're just...
I mean, of course, they have plenty of other games like that where I would probably just watch it instead because I have no interest. Like, if it was actually compelling gameplay, I'd probably play it. Right. Because to my knowledge, pretty much every single one of the games that they release are really, really well done. Or at least the story is, because, I mean, of course, there's not much to go on gameplay-wise.
Yeah, I mean, Telltale games are mostly just interactive stories. So, again,
that's a hard fucking genre to be in.
Yeah.
Give him that. Especially in this day and age. It'd be different if it was before the age of piracy.
If it was like,
or at least mainstream piracy.
If it was like in Call of Duty, The Wolves Among Us, I mean, shoot, gangbusters. It'd sell gangbusters, I'll tell you that.
I don't know.
Just like
I feel like
it's just like the way you sighed was just like, oh my god, why did I get him on this show?
No, but seriously, you won't be allowed back.
Well, I'll just pack my stuff up.
Why? You're home.
I'm gonna move out. I'm gonna be homeless.
You're gonna pack your stuff up and then like unpack it. It's like, well,
Here.
That was uneventful. I don't know. I guess like taking everything into consideration, Persona the company is just looking out for Persona the game.
Yeah, and Persona the executive is
Persona.
Oh man, that'd be weird.
That would be very weird. I guess it's kind of like a Pokemon thing if you think about it. Because, I mean, I guess it's not super relevant, but the creator of Pokemon's name is Satoshi. Yeah. And I believe that's one of the optional names for Red in the original games, as well as Ash, the Japanese version of Ash.
I was going to point that out if you didn't.
In the anime. Yeah. It's like, okay. It's very conceited of you.
He created an international phenomenon. If that doesn't make someone a little conceited, then you didn't create an international phenomenon.
Valid. But that'd be kind of like fucking Mario's Japanese name being Shigeru.
Well, I mean, it was just Jumpman.
We look it up and it is.
It was just Jumpman before.
Well, this fucking Shigeru's name, Jumpman, like Shigeru Jumpman.
Mario, Link. Those are their first and last names, respectively.
Yeah. I feel like that was really stupid. They could have gave him some, like, throwaway Italian last name.
I mean, Mario got his name from Mario Segale, Nintendo of America's landlord, who busted in their meeting room demanding payment when they were discussing Mario, or Jumpman at the time. They're like, you know what? Let's use him. And that's and the rest, they say, is history.
It was a really long time ago. I don't know. Like, I find that interesting because it's like, why the fuck would you use a name of somebody that probably weren't all that on good terms with?
I mean, they're about to go.
That's like if I have a fight with my neighbor. His name's like Patrick. Like, fuck you, Patrick. I'm gonna make a character out of you, and it's gonna make millions, and you're not gonna get
no royalties.
Fuck you.
The ultimate revenge. I can see that.
I don't know. They could have gave him like, I don't know, Mario. It's just, as I'm saying it, maybe I'm incorrect in saying this because I'm like Mario Bellucci. Wait, that's more like that sounds like
Mario
a
Spaghetti.
Porn star name. Mario Spaghetti.
Give me your spaghetti, Mario.
Like,
oh, Luigi. You really know how to.
That's the perfect Mario.
You really know how to mess with my meatballs, Luigi.
Fuck you, Luigi.
Oh man, I love that scene so much. Oh,
I'm gonna have to watch it after this is over. Speaking of which, I think
we've overstayed our welcome.
Exhausted any of the talking points that we had thought of. Is there anything else that you'd like to talk about, Nick?
No. I can't think of anything else at the top of my head.
Well, I guess now would be your chance to plug for the two people who stayed for the whole 2 hours.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Well, if you haven't figured out who I am Nick from GameAway. I'm the co-founder and editor of all the episodes and videos that are always on the channel. But if you want a short synopsis of what we are and who we do, We're a rotating cast of gamers that bring something new to the daily conventions of the internet. We produce high-quality reviews, playthroughs, gaming news, and other various types of content with a high production value. I think JerBer can definitely contest to that.
Absolutely. I feel that Nick is one of those type of channels. I'm sure a lot of you have seen those channels with amazing production that doesn't have anywhere near the amount of subscribers that they have, with nowhere near the amount of subscribers that they deserve. And they've had several chances where somebody was supposed to help them out. Not gonna name any names, but rhymes with Ouija the God. But I feel like we should have talked about, maybe next time we should talk about that.
I have a
next
lot
time,
to say,
because I really feel like we need to get more air on that. That's of course if you want to. I know you probably like just dusted.
Oh no, I still have everything. Oof. I still get mad just thinking about it. He took advantage of us just because we're small, and he's a much bigger channel than we are.
We may need to make like a podcast episode just about talking about like YouTubers, like and then making separate things about like, you know, big YouTubers versus small YouTubers and things of that sort. Because things like that happen all the time on YouTube, unfortunately. And I think it's kind of bullshit, especially when it happens to somebody who goes out of their way to make sure that this content creator that they really like gets what they need. It's not very fair to those people.
Definitely not.
Taking Nick and Ouija, for example, as an example of that. But going back to their quality, Game Away stuff is amazing. They're a channel that has, at the moment, a little less than 500 subs when they really should have at least 100 times more than that. And if you guys, I'm serious, dude, your content's fucking amazing for the amount of subscribers. It's not fucking fair, like in the slightest. There are a lot of our friends and stuff who, you know, their subscriber counts make sense for the levels that they are. Yours is one of the ones that just makes no fucking sense to me. It never has. Even when we met and I fucking told you that.
That was like the first thing you said to me.
So, yeah. So if you guys like gaming content, which I'm sure you do if you're here, because a lot of my stuff is gaming content, please go check them out.
And a little thing to add on there, if you do check out our stuff, we do have a very, I wouldn't say cringy, but it's a very different type of introduction for every single video. And recently it's become important because with many cast members, I think we have 8 people on our cast. The intro has different variations, so if we're playing like a specific game, there are specific players, and that intro tells you who's in it. So if you don't like a specific person, like if you don't like me and don't want to see me in any video, be sure to watch the intro first, because it'll let you know.
I'm not 100% sure if you guys have already done this. One thing I could criticize you about if you don't have it, you could definitely because all right, so you guys probably heard me earlier when I said that Nick and I did a podcast thing previous to this, in that the plan was that I was going to separate videos by the people who were in them, and I feel like you should also do that for Game Away as well, with as big of a crowd as you guys have. Like Game Away, I can't think of what the name of the fucking double dot symbol is. Fucking Christ.
Double dot symbol.
Fucking, I believe it's a colon.
Oh yeah.
Like Game Away, Nick, you know, just shit like that.
Well, I mean, if you watch the videos, if it's like a multiplayer game, for example, take Mario Kart 64, which is my favorite video to date.
You also have it in the thumbnails, don't you?
Usually. I haven't done I haven't done it recently. But I did incorporate that into the thumbnails for most videos. So, I mean, you have like 3 different options. You can either see this in the intro, the thumbnails, or if all else fails, you'll see it in the names of the texts of, you know, which screen is who if we're playing a multiplayer game, for example, Mario Kart 64. But besides the point, maybe you should plug in your stuff since it's your podcast and all that.
Well, you guys, I probably should do this, but I was also planning on doing it on a separate video. Of course, you guys are on my YouTube. I will include my YouTube and Twitter links, but of course, if you guys are interested in, because I know I don't post a lot on here, but if you guys are more interested in seeing more of my posts that are less significant than the videos themselves, I do make a lot of update posts on my Twitter, so you guys should really take a look at that. Should really take a look at that.
I recommend taking a look at his stuff. He does some great animations. Ooh, hit the mic there. I'm sorry, baby.
I didn't even notice it. That just goes to show how nice the fucking mic is.
His channel's good. I watch actually a lot of your stuff. I watch a lot of people's stuff. Yeah, I do.
Did you really?
Actually, I keep up with a lot of your stuff. I haven't watched it recently, because, you know, dealing with life stuff, but...
I haven't posted shit recently.
I mean, last video was a month ago.
And it wasn't even, like, directed towards the rest of my channel. It was just kind of like, hey, if you're having this problem with this thing, here you go.
Which is really helpful, because, you know, I know a lot of people who have that. But yeah, he does a lot of pretty cool drawings, animations, and stuff like that. He even does commissions. So if you want to draw, like, want him to draw some hentai for you,
yeah, shut the fuck up, Nick. I was gonna make a statement about that in the video.
Whoops. Sorry.
I'll leave that in. Fuck that. That's too good. But no, like, definitely if you guys want to see, because of course I said earlier that I'm working on a really big animation right now. If you guys want to see updates on that, you definitely need to go look at my Twitter, because I have my blog posts within my Twitter. Basically, anytime I have something to show, I will show it on my Twitter. Whereas I try to, even though I have like gameplay that's just needless on the channel, I try to post as much completely serious stuff on the channel as possible, as I'm sure a lot of you have noticed. So if you want to just see a bunch of my random shit or updates to stuff that I'm working on, my Twitter is definitely where you want to go. But with that, I think that's going to conclude the podcast. Nick, thank you so much for being on.
Sure, man. Anytime you want me, you can have me.
Oh, I love the way you worded that. Magnifique.
Pour some salt on that. You can call it a meal.
Baby, that don't need no salt. It's perfectly seasoned as it is, bro.
Ooh, baby kings.
God damn it, Nick. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for listening, especially to this point. Our links, anything that we reference, will be down in the description. I will see you guys later. Peace out.
This is the JerBer and Game Away podcast, and we'll see you next time, lovely viewers. Oh.
Beautiful end, beautiful end.
Yes. Yes. Is that good enough for you?
Yeah, that's definitely going to go at the end.
Okay.